show you how to make a faux leather fringe bag, which are very popular right now, have been for a while. I've been meaning to buy one, it's just I find they're actually overpriced in the store. So I thought that I would try and make one for myself, only because I found some really affordable faux leather at the fabric store, and I have never made a purse before. I'm not super handy with my sewing machine. Definitely a beginner, and I tackled this, made the pattern myself, and tried to make it really simple and basic. So if you're a beginner as well with a sewing machine, this should be pretty simple for you to do. And I'm actually really quite happy with how it turned out. So let's get to that DIY. So I grabbed some faux leather for this. You'll need some matching thread, needles, scissors, measuring tape, a pen, a rotary cutter, and a piece of paper, and also a cutting board. So I'm just grabbing my piece of paper here and measuring out a small little template. This is a design that I just created, and it's essentially just a large rectangle, and then I'm drawing a dotted line across the center where there will be a fold, 1 inch on either side, and then 4 inches up the center here, and I'm connecting those dots, and basically this is just kind of a little triangle flap that's going to fold over the top of our purse. So I will leave a picture of this linked in the comments below with all of the measurements that I used in case you want to use it as well. And when you cut out your design and just kind of go along those folds, that's kind of the idea behind this simple purse that I'm creating. So go ahead and you can pin your template into your piece of fabric, and once you've done that, you can go around the outside and just cut it out. So after you're done cutting it all out, then you can remove those pins and the piece of paper. And when you fold this, and leaving that extra inch along the top, we're going to pin this into place because we need to stitch this together with the sewing machine. So once you've pinned that down on either side, we're going to stitch along that side, the opposite side. I also took my stitching up and around the top just to kind of finish off the edge. So before I moved ahead, I tried out a couple of different stitch patterns with my sewing machine, and I decided that I liked this one up here on the right the best. So that's the one that I went with. And then again, just taking this through your sewing machine and stitching up along those sides and around the top. That's what it might look like when I was done. And now I'm grabbing my purse here, laying it down again on a piece of fabric so I can see how wide I need to make my pieces of fringe to go across this purse. So I just use that as a guideline, and then I'm taking my rotary cutter here, and a straight edge, a ruler works, and cutting out a large rectangle. So now I'm using these 2 squares on my cutting board, and that's the width of my rectangles that I'm going to create and turn into fringe. Now I turned this 1 large rectangle into 3 rectangles, and then I'm going to turn that all into some fringe. So this takes a really long time. Each piece of my fringe was about half of one of those little tiny squares that you can see on my cutting board. So be patient with this, and make sure when you're doing it, you're pressing down really hard and also leaving about a ½ inch at the top that you don't cut all the way through. So once you're done with all of those pieces of fringe, you can lay them out and see kind of how you want them to be placed, and make sure that everything is getting covered up. And this is where I realized that I totally messed up. Basically, I shouldn't have sewn that pouch together yet for the purse, because now I can't stitch this whole piece of fringe straight across, because obviously that's going to mess up my pouch. So I pinned it along either side, and I'm just going to stitch it in where we stitched it earlier. And as you can see, I can really only stitch it about ½ inch down on either side. And I did that with both pieces that go across the body, because again, I cannot stitch this right across my purse. It's going to close the opening. So I ended up having to go back and hand stitch all along there, and also all along the other side, and again only going through 1 layer of fabric. So yes, try not to make the same mistake that I did. This piece though, we can stitch all the way across the top because it flaps open. So I just pinned that down, and then I'm stitching all the way across the top. Just a quick note here, I didn't put any liner on the inside of my purse, which is something that I definitely would suggest doing and going back before you do all of this. Okay, so moving on to the straps. So I am using this wood that I have here. It's not a ruler. I'm using this as my guideline for the width of my straps, and I'm just going to go ahead and cut out 4 of these pieces. And I want 4 because we're going to stitch 2 of them together so that we have leather facing on the outside of either side. So once you've cut out 4, you can go ahead and pin those together, and then we're just going to run that through the sewing machine. I basically just stitch this right up the center, really keeping this very simple. And this is what it looked like when it was all done. And then we're going to take both of those 2 straps and stitch them together. I was just utilizing the material that I had. If you want to make one really long strap, you can do that too and kind of skip that process. But once you've got one long strap, and I made mine a satchel bag, so you can make it as long or as short as you want. I'm basically just stitching this again along that side that we've been stitching entirely this whole time, and stitching it to the back of my purse. So you can sew all the way down until you reach that second piece of fringe there. You don't want to go through the fringe because then it's not going to be loose anymore. And also make sure when you're sewing back up to the top, you're not sewing the purse shut. So you can trim off those excess pieces of your strap, and that's all there is to it. Your purse is done. So now I have my hippie bag, and you can have one too. Just try this DIY out for yourself. Send me some photos of what your purse looks like, and maybe you can make some improvements upon my design because you are more handy with your sewing machine than I am. Love to see what it looks like when it's all done. Send me some photos on Instagram and on Twitter. You can follow me at toDIYfor. And when you are tagging me in those photos, use the hashtag toDIYfor. As always, looking for some suggestions for upcoming DIYs. Christmas is around the corner, so yeah, what do you want to see me make? Leave it in the comments below, or you can also tweet me at toDIYfor. Don't forget, if you enjoyed this DIY, let me know, give me a like, share it with your friends, and subscribe because next Wednesday I'll be back with a new video. Cheers! These are dirty. Oh no! I just broke my glasses. These aren't words. Ah, it's okay. Snap straight back in.